The calculated capture. The Xalaxian warship trembled as it docked with Helcarac Station. Admiral Elena Vostok felt the familiar vibration beneath her feet, but maintained her impassive expression. She sat upright on the cold metal bench in her containment cell, energy restraints pulsing with a violet glow around her wrists. Most prisoners would show fear or defeat after 3 months in enemy custody. Elena showed neither. 4 Xalaxian guards entered as the door hissed open. Their towering frames cast long shadows across the small cell. The crystalline exoskeletons covering their humanoid forms caught the harsh light, sending prismatic reflections dancing across the walls. Their breathing apparatus made wet, clicking sounds as they processed the nitrogen-heavy mixture they required. "Stand, human," ordered the lead guard, his translator rendering his natural harmonic speech into flat standard English. Elena rose slowly, deliberately. The prison jumpsuit they'd given her hung loose on her frame, but despite the poor rations and confined quarters during transport, her posture remained military perfect. At 53, she was no longer young, but decades of command had hardened her body and spirit alike. The short gray hair that had once been black was the only concession to age she had permitted herself. "The legendary Admiral Vostok," said another guard, a female by the subtle differences in her exoskeleton patterns. "The butcher of Proxima Centauri. Not so formidable without your fleet." Elena remained silent, dark eyes observing everything. The number of guards, their weapons, the security protocols as they led her from the transport. The Xalaxians grew uncomfortable under her steady gaze. They had expected rage, perhaps begging. They received only calculated observation. They marched her through long corridors of polished black metal. Helcarac Station was enormous, at least 3 times the size of humanity's largest orbital prison. As they walked, Elena counted steps, noted camera placements, observed security checkpoints. A normal prisoner might look for escape routes. Elena was looking for something else entirely. After passing through 7 security checkpoints, they arrived at a vast command center. Holographic displays projected 3-dimensional maps of nearby systems. Xalaxian officers moved from station to station, their crystalline bodies creating a strange symphony of light and sound. At the center stood a larger Xalaxian, his exoskeleton a deep purple rather than the common blue. Silver inlays marked his rank, War Commander, the equivalent of Elena's admiral status. This was Vex Morin, the strategist who had finally managed to capture her after years of failed attempts. "Admiral Elena Vostok," Vex Morin said, his translator making his voice sound almost melodic. "The human who cost me 3 battle groups at Tau Ceti." "War Commander Vex Morin," Elena replied calmly. "Still fighting a war you cannot win." The Xalaxian moved closer, towering over her by nearly half a meter. "The circumstances have changed, Admiral. Your capture has demoralized the human forces. Your defense strategies are no longer guiding them. Is that what you believe?" Elena asked, a subtle smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Vex Morin's breathing apparatus clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. "Your confidence is misplaced. Your imprisonment here will be permanent. We have special protocols for prisoners of your significance. I look forward to experiencing them," Elena replied with unsettling calm. Her response clearly unsettled Vex Morin. He had expected fear, perhaps desperate negotiation. Not this strange serenity. "Take her to Security Block Omega," he ordered. "Maximum isolation." The guards escorted her deeper into the station, through more checkpoints, down several levels. At each transition, Elena memorized the access codes, counted the guards, noted the response times of the security systems. Other prisoners watched as she passed, representatives of a dozen different species the Xalaxians had subjugated or were at war with. Some showed recognition at seeing the famous human admiral. None showed hope. Security Block Omega lay at the heart of the station, as far from escape routes as possible. The perfect place to hold high-value prisoners. The perfect place to hide critical systems. "Your new accommodations," "Admiral," said the lead guard, shoving her into a small cell. "I suggest you adapt quickly. You'll be here until the end of humanity's resistance, or the end of your life, whichever comes first." The door sealed with a heavy thud. Alina stood motionless in the center of the bare cell. A simple bed, a sanitation unit, and nothing else. The walls were solid metal with no visible seams. A lighting panel embedded in the ceiling glowed with harsh, unwavering light. Alina sat on the edge of the bed and closed her eyes. In her mind, she began constructing a detailed map of Helcarax Station, not to plot an escape, but to locate what she had come to find. 6 months ago, Alina had discovered the Xalaxians' plan to launch a massive assault on the Sol system itself. 5 months ago, she had proposed a mission so audacious that even the Joint Chiefs had initially rejected it. 4 months ago, she had deliberately allowed herself to be captured. Alina opened her eyes, the ghost of a smile forming on her lips. Phase 1 was complete. Day after day, Admiral Vostok sat in the exact same position during the mandated exercise period, while other prisoners moved around the large hall, conversing or engaging in permitted activities. Alina sat cross-legged on the floor, back straight, hands resting on her knees. Her eyes remained open, watching. "The human statue is at it again," one guard remarked to another as they observed from their elevated position. "Does she ever move?" asked the second guard. "Rarely. Humans are strange creatures. This one especially." What they failed to notice was how Alina's gaze tracked everything. Guard rotations, security protocols, the subtle hierarchies among both guards and prisoners. She noted which guards carried live weapons rather than stun buttons. She counted seconds between security suites. She identified which cameras had blind spots. After 47 days in Helcarax, Alina knew the station's routines better than many of the guards who worked there. She knew Guard Captain Nex Levin always checked her cell personally at the beginning of third shift. She knew the surveillance system in the exercise hall had a 3-second delay when switching to secondary power during routine maintenance. She knew precisely how long it took for reinforcements to arrive during incidents. On the 48th day, a massive prisoner approached Alina during exercise period. His skin was mottled green and brown, thick plates covering vital areas. A Durashan warrior, one of the few species that had successfully resisted Xalaxian domination before allying with humans. "You watch and wait, human," the Durashan said, his translator making his deep voice sound mechanical. "Day after day. What do you see?" Alina looked up at him calmly. "Patterns. Many look for ways out," he continued, lowering his voice. "None succeed at Helcarax. Escape isn't my objective," Alina replied softly. The Durashan, who introduced himself as Corvin, seemed puzzled but intrigued. "Then what is?" "Justice," she said simply. From that day forward, Corvin joined Alina during exercise periods, sitting nearby in silence. Soon, others began to congregate near them. An Arcturian engineer, a pair of Vega merchants, even a disgraced Xalaxian scientist. They rarely spoke, yet a community formed around the still watchful human admiral. Alina had learned much about Xalaxian psychology during her years fighting them. One crucial insight was their obsessive need for symmetry, a biological imperative tied to their crystalline evolution. In her cell, she began arranging her few possessions in deliberately asymmetrical patterns, her blanket folded unevenly, her water cup placed at odd angles, her meal tray balanced precariously. The guards noticed. They would rearrange her items during inspections. Alina would return them to asymmetry. Guard Captain Nex Levin began to report headaches after inspecting her cell. Other guards assigned to her block complained of sleep disturbances. They began to avoid looking directly at her. On the 60th day, the interrogations began. Alina was taken to a sterile room deep in the station. 3 Xalaxian intelligence officers waited for her, including Science Director Thelverin, notorious for her enhanced questioning techniques. "Admiral Vostok," Thelverin said, her translator making her voice unnaturally high-pitched. "We have questions regarding Earth's defensive capabilities." Alina sat calmly in the hard chair. "I'm certain you do." For hours they questioned her about Earth's fleet movements, defense systems, and military strategies. Alina provided them with outdated information, carefully crafted half-truths, and occasional genuine insights that she knew would no longer be tactically useful. With each question, she gained understanding of their concerns and priorities. They asked repeatedly about Earth's quantum detection arrays. They seemed particularly interested in humanity's deep space monitoring capabilities. Most tellingly, they inquired multiple times about a region of space near Neptune that had no apparent strategic value. "Our intelligence suggests humans have developed new weapon technologies," said Thelvarin. "Molecular disassemblers, perhaps." "I've been your prisoner for months," Alina replied with calculated weariness. "I know nothing of such developments." But now she knew what worried them. The Xalaxians feared humanity had discovered something they had hidden in the outer Sol system. After the interrogation, as they escorted her back to her cell, Alina began to refine her plan. The pieces were falling into place. 3 days later, during exercise period, a fight erupted between two prisoners, Corvin and a Vega merchant. Guards rushed to intervene. In the confusion, Alina slipped away from the main group. She had precisely 18 seconds before the surveillance system would notice her absence. She reached a terminal she had observed guards using during shift changes. As she had anticipated, it remained logged in. Her fingers moved rapidly over the unfamiliar controls. She entered a code sequence she had memorized before her capture, a sequence that would embed a compressed message into routine system communications. When the guards discovered her, she offered no resistance. The punishment was severe: 3 days in isolation with reduced life support. Alina endured it without complaint. The message had been sent. The response came 20 days later, during meal distribution. The Arcturian engineer passed close to her table and whispered 3 words: 72 hours. Ready. Alina continued eating as if nothing had happened. Inside, for the first time in months, she allowed herself to feel a flicker of anticipation. The final phase was about to begin. The reckoning. War Commander Vex Morin stood before the holographic display, studying the detailed projections of the upcoming assault on the Sol system. The crystalline growths along his spine pulsed with anticipation as he contemplated the imminent fall of humanity's homeworld. "The final preparations are complete," reported his chief strategist, Hexel Tovar. "The fleet will depart for the Neptune staging area in 14 standard cycles." "Excellent," Vex Morin replied. "And the human admiral? Has she provided any additional intelligence?" "None of value," Hexel Tovar admitted. "She remains unnaturally composed." "Increase the psychological pressure," Vex Morin ordered. "Humans break eventually." "They all do." But as he spoke, an uneasy sensation rippled through his exoskeleton. Something about the human admiral's capture had been too straightforward. After evading them for so long, why had her ship suddenly developed critical systems failures in that particular sector? The question had nagged at him since her arrival at Helcarax. In her cell, Alina Vostok sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, breathing measured. To the surveillance systems, she appeared to be meditating, a common human relaxation technique. In reality, she was counting. 6 cycles until guard rotation, 8 cycles until the next system diagnostic, 41 cycles until the Xalaxian fleet departed for Neptune. The cell doors slid open. Guard Captain Nex Liven entered, accompanied by 2 security drones. His crystalline exoskeleton had developed a slight asymmetry, a stress fracture pattern that Alina had noticed developing over the past weeks. "Admiral," he said, his translator failing to mask the tension in his harmonic speech, "you have been summoned for further questioning." Alina opened her eyes slowly. "Have I?" "Do not test my patience," Nex Liven warned. "Strange incidents have been occurring throughout the station. Systems malfunctions, Communication errors. Some believe you are responsible. Elena rose to her feet with deliberate calm. How could I be? I've been in isolation, under constant surveillance. Yet these incidents began shortly after your arrival. Next, Laven's breathing apparatus clicked rapidly, and they increase in frequency whenever you are moved from your cell. Correlation is not causation, Captain, Elena replied with a slight smile. Basic logic. The guard's exoskeleton vibrated with frustration. Move. Now. Instead of taking her to the interrogation chambers, they escorted her to a higher level of the station she had not previously accessed. The security protocols here were more stringent. Retinal scans, biometric verification, quantum encryption locks. Elena memorized each one, adding to her mental map of Helcarax. They entered a circular chamber dominated by a massive quantum communication array. War Commander Vex Morin stood waiting, along with Science Director Thilverin, and several high-ranking officers Elena had not seen before. Admiral Vostok, Vex Morin said, "You continue to intrigue us." Elena remained silent, studying the room. The communication array was military-grade, capable of instantaneous transmission across vast distances, technology the Xalaxians had previously denied possessing. "We have intercepted unusual signal patterns originating from this station," Vex Morin continued. "Patterns that match human encryption algorithms." "Fascinating," Elena replied, "though I fail to see how this concerns me." Thilverin stepped forward. "Our analysis suggests these signals contain compressed data, specifically the projected departure times of our fleet and its intended course to the Neptune staging area." For the first time since her capture, Elena allowed genuine surprise to show on her face. "Neptune? You're staging a fleet near Neptune?" The Xalaxian officers exchanged glances. Vex Morin's exoskeleton darkened, a physiological response to intense emotion. "You would have us believe you didn't know?" he asked. "I've been your prisoner for months," Elena replied. "My knowledge of current military operations is limited to what you've revealed during interrogations." Vex Morin studied her for several long moments. "You are lying. The signal patterns originated from terminals accessed shortly after your presence in those areas." "Coincidence," Elena said with a shrug. "Or perhaps someone is attempting to implicate me." "There is another possibility," Thilverin interjected. "Human psychological warfare, creating paranoia among our ranks." Vex Morin's breathing apparatus clicked rapidly. "Regardless of your methods, Admiral, they have failed. Our fleet will depart as scheduled. The assault on your homeworld will proceed, and you will witness the beginning of humanity's end." Elena's expression remained impassive, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "Why show me this? Why reveal your plans?" "Because soon it will not matter what you know," Vex Morin replied. "And I wanted to see the defeat in your eyes when you finally understand the futility of your resistance." Instead of defeat, Elena smiled. "Interesting choice." The War Commander's exoskeleton pulsed with anger. "Return her to her cell. Double the guard presence." As they escorted her back through the station, Elena felt a subtle vibration through the floor, almost imperceptible, but distinct from the normal hum of the station's systems. Phase 3 had begun. The emergency alarms activated during third shift. Red warning lights pulsed throughout the station as automated systems announced security breaches in multiple sectors. Guard Captain Nex Levin rushed to Elena's cell, finding her sitting calmly on her bed. "What have you done?" he demanded, his translator barely keeping pace with his agitated harmonics. "I've been here the entire time," Elena replied serenely, "as your surveillance logs will confirm." Nex Levin's exoskeleton vibrated with frustration. "The other prisoners, your conspirators, they are attempting an escape." "Are they?" Elena asked, genuinely curious. This wasn't part of her plan. Before Nex Levin could respond, his communication device emitted an urgent alert. "All security personnel to Docking Bay 12. Unidentified vessels approaching." The guard captain hesitated, clearly torn between securing his high-value prisoner and responding to the greater threat. "Go," Elena suggested. "I'll still be here when you return." With a final suspicious glance, Nex Levin sealed her cell and departed. Elena began counting again. She reached 47 when the lights flickered, then switched to emergency power. She reached 123 when the cell door slid open. Corvin the Durishan stood in the doorway, holding a Xalaxian pulse rifle. "Time to move, Admiral." Elena rose calmly. "This isn't part of the plan." "Plans change," Corvin replied, handing her a communication device. "Your people are very resourceful." They moved swiftly through the corridors of Helcarax. The station was in chaos, security protocols overridden, systems malfunctioning, guards responding to multiple simultaneous threats. They encountered little resistance as they made their way toward the station's central core. "The others?" Elena asked as they ran. "Creating diversions," Corvin explained. "The Arcturian disabled the internal defense grid. The Vega merchants are leading a group to the escape pods as a distraction." They reached a heavily reinforced door, the entrance to the station's central command node. Elena approached the access panel and entered a complex sequence. The door remained sealed. "They changed the codes," she muttered. Corvin stepped forward. "Stand back." He placed a small device against the door. A molecular disruptor, technology that shouldn't exist outside of theoretical research labs. The door's atomic structure began to break down, creating an opening large enough to pass through. Elena glanced at her Durishan ally with newfound respect. "You've been holding out on me." "As have you, Admiral," he replied with what passed for a smile on his reptilian features. They entered the central command node, a spherical chamber filled with quantum computers and communication arrays. Elena moved directly to the main console and began accessing the system. "How much time?" Corvin asked, securing the entrance. 3 minutes to access the command protocols," Elena replied, her fingers moving rapidly over the controls. 2 more to execute the program." "We may not have 5 minutes," Corvin warned, as distant weapons fire echoed through the station. Elena didn't respond, fully focused on her task. Screens flashed before her as she bypassed security measures and accessed the station's core systems. Finally, she reached the command level she sought. Direct control of the quantum communication array. She entered a final sequence and stepped back. "It's done." "What exactly did you accomplish?" Corvin asked. Before Elena could answer, the main view screen activated. War Commander Vex Morin's face appeared, his exoskeleton dark with rage. "Admiral Vostok," he hissed, "your escape attempt is futile. Security teams are converging on your location. Surrender now, and your co-conspirators may be spared." Elena moved to face the screen directly. "This was never about escape, Commander." Vex Morin's breathing apparatus clicked rapidly. "Then what?" "Transmission complete," announced an automated voice from the console. Elena smiled. That was the entire Xalaxian military database, including the details of your Neptune staging area and the planned assault on Earth, being sent directly to the human fleet. Vex Morin's exoskeleton paled. "Impossible. Our fleet is already in position. Your forces couldn't possibly respond in time." "Actually," Elena replied calmly, "they've been in position for weeks, waiting for this exact moment." The station shuddered violently as the first impact struck. Warning klaxons blared throughout the facility. "Multiple vessels dropping out of FTL," shouted a voice off-screen. "Human signatures. They're everywhere." Vex Morin's face contorted with realization. You allowed yourself to be captured." "It was the only way to confirm the location of your staging area," Elena explained, "and to access the command codes that would allow our fleet to bypass your defensive screens." "You sacrificed yourself," Vex Morin said in disbelief. "I volunteered for a mission," Elena corrected him. "There's a difference." The view screen split to show multiple angles of space around Helcarax Station. Dozens of human battlecruisers had emerged from FTL, their weapon systems already engaging the unprepared Salaxian defenses. Beyond them, hundreds more ships appeared, heading directly for the Neptune staging area. The difference, Elena continued, is that I never planned to die here. The station shook again as precision strikes disabled its weapons systems and engines without compromising the structural integrity. Elena had provided the exact schematics needed to neutralize Helcarax without destroying it. Why? Vex Morin demanded. Why not simply destroy us? Because genocide isn't our way, Elena replied. Despite what you've believed about humanity, we're offering terms, immediate withdrawal from all human territories and a formal peace treaty. Or we demonstrate exactly why you should fear humans, Elena said, her voice hardening. Your Neptune staging area is already under attack. Your fleet will be disabled or destroyed within the hour. And then Earth will be beyond your reach forever. Corvin approached with a communication device. Admiral, your people have secured the main docking bay. Transport is standing by. Elena nodded, then turned back to the screen. Make your choice, War Commander, peace or extinction. Humans prefer the former, but we're prepared for the latter. The station shuddered once more as the human forces continued their precise assault. Vex Morin's exoskeleton had faded to a pale blue, a sign of defeat in Salaxian physiology. This isn't over, he said quietly. No, Elena agreed. It's just beginning. A new chapter in our history, one where we understand each other better. She turned away from the screen and headed toward the exit with Corvin. Behind them, the view screen showed human shuttles docking with Helcarax, troops securing key positions throughout the station. The operation was proceeding exactly as Elena had planned. As they made their way to the docking bay, they passed cells being opened, prisoners being freed. The faces that had once shown defeat now showed hope, and many nodded respectfully to the human admiral who had orchestrated their liberation. You never told me the full plan, Corvin said as they walked. Need to know basis, Elena replied. But I trusted you would play your part when the time came. And the Salaxians, will your people honor the offer of peace? Elena's expression turned solemn. That depends on them. Humans don't seek conquest. We never have. But we will always defend ourselves. The Salaxians need to understand that. They reached the docking bay where a human military shuttle waited. A young officer stepped forward and saluted crisply. Admiral Vostok, Operation Trojan Horse is a complete success. The Neptune staging area has been neutralized, and the Joint Chiefs send their congratulations. Elena returned the salute. Casualties. Minimal on our side, the officer reported. We caught them completely unprepared. And the prisoners? Being evacuated as we speak. Medical teams are standing by. Elena nodded, satisfied. She turned to Corvin. Will you be returning to Darash? The warrior shook his massive head. My people will want to know about the humans who infiltrated the most secure Salaxian facility and turned the tide of the war. I believe I'll be accompanying you to Earth, if you'll have me. We be honored, Elena replied with a genuine smile. Earth should meet the allies who made this victory possible. As the shuttle departed from Helcarax Station, Elena watched through the viewport as human ships secured the facility. Not a prison anymore, but a forward operating base in what had once been undisputed Salaxian territory. She had spent months in captivity, endured interrogations, and risked everything on a plan that had seemed impossible. But she had never doubted its success, because she understood what the Salaxians never could. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or numbers or even strategy. It was sacrifice, the willingness to risk everything for a greater purpose. As the shuttle entered FTL, leaving Helcarax behind, Elena finally allowed herself to relax. The war wasn't over, but its course had been irrevocably changed. And the legend of the human admiral who had turned capture into conquest would spread throughout the galaxy, a warning to any who might threaten Earth in the future. Some would call it revenge for the Xalaxian aggression. The Lena preferred to think of it as justice. Either way, the message was clear: underestimate humanity at your peril.